Thank you all for coming today. Leonardo's Last Supper. It still resides in the Church of Santa Maria delle Grazie in Milan, where it was completed. Tourists from around the globe flock to marvel at, in the allotted 15-minute viewing time, this monumental work of art. But once the bell rings, the show is over, and you are ushered out with not so much as a thank you for coming. This is the stage where the Last Supper is set. The viewer experience relegated to a 15-minute rush act, accompanied by a drove of tourists, tour guides, and glowing blue screens ready to take a selfie. Now, part of the reason for this viewer experience has to do with Leonardo's taste for experimentation in the Last Supper, which caused it, unfortunately, almost immediately to decompose. The fragility of the masterpiece, which I'm showing here in a purposefully faded slide, has generated a neuroses around it, fearful of its impending disintegration. This fear, to an extent, has influenced and warped our perception and relationship with the Last Supper. But what if one could change that? Contemporary British filmmaker Peter Greenaway's digital adaptation, Leonardo's Last Supper, a vision by Peter Greenaway, offers such a possibility. The possibility to facilitate a kind of spectatorship that encompasses and enlarges the work of art and restores it to a vision and an importance that is commensurate with its original form. In my research, I explore the effect this treatment has on the Last Supper, with the goal of answering the following question. How does Peter Greenaway negotiate between the tension between the permanence of the myth associated with the Last Supper and the material impermanence of its creation? My presentation today comes out of my dissertation work, where I more broadly examine the topic of digital adaptations and how they adapt Renaissance masterworks in the 21st century. Primarily, my focus falls on Peter Greenaway's unfinished series, 9 Classic Paintings Revisited, which he began in 2007 and exhibited in the US and Europe. Today, I will be discussing the second installment in the series, dedicated to his Last Supper. But first, who is Peter Greenaway? Greenaway began his career as an artist. He trained as a mural painter before transitioning somewhat unintentionally into film. His work centers around the intersection between cinema and art, and he is best known as a filmmaker who worked heavily in the 80s and 90s. Nevertheless, he always finds his way back to painting. This is particularly true in the case of his Last Supper, which he himself characterized as, quote, a dialogue between the visual literacies of cinema and the visual literacies of painting. He further noted that the objective of the project was, quote, to make the painting relevant to the imagination of the laptop generation. Leonardo's Last Supper, the installation, is a 3-part visual extravaganza, combining lights, projections, and music to create a visually immersive experience. Greenaway reproduces the physical space of the refectory in Santa Maria delle Grazie, where the Last Supper resides. And in this replicated refectory, he features a long white table, which is a nod to the original function of the space as a dining hall for the Dominican monks that lived there. And as in the refectory, the Last Supper, which in this case is featured on the central wall in the form of an exact clone, faces the head of the white table as it would have. The centerpiece of the installation is a short film sequence achieved by light projections on the Last Supper replica, which is accompanied by an evocative soundtrack. Now, there are 3 narratives that are interweaved by Greenaway in this light show that he superimposes on this set. The first visually narrates Leonardo's masterful talent at emphasizing body and gesture. The second hints at the legends associated with the making and legacy of the Last Supper. And finally, the third compresses the New Testament Gospels of betrayal, crucifixion, and resurrection. In the first part of Greenaway's short film sequence, seen in a still on this slide, he highlights the hands, illuminating them as if they were gesturing. Very Italian, I know. And does so to accentuate Leonardo's incredible talent for painting expressive bodies. The revelation of hands begins to alternate between light and dark, moving back and forth across the table to the rhythm of music that serves as the soundtrack, thus reinforcing further the notion of cinema over still image. He then plays a very clever trick on the audience. He projects an illusion of Jesus' feet under the table that is highlighted in orange. Now, these feet were included in the original Last Supper. Leonardo had imagined that they would be there, but unfortunately the monks decided to trade them in for a new door. And Greenaway here then is using digital projections to fill in the blanks, so to speak, in a bid to realign the viewer with the painting in its initial form. The focus then shifts from the figures in the painting to the larger story by introducing light from windows onto the image. And rays of light, 3 times gold, and I'm sorry that the images appear so dim here, like sunlight, and 2 silver, like moonlight, represent the 3 days and 2 nights that transpired from the Passion to the Resurrection, without which the actual historical event, the Last Supper of Jesus and his disciples, would be of little consequence. Finally, in the last part of the sequence, in the last moment of the film that Greenaway creates for us, light emanates from the central figure, a light that grows brighter and brighter, only to conclude with a theatrical blackout. I hope that I have briefly shown today that ultimately Greenaway uses the cinematic to give a sense of the painting that is more animate than the washed-out version time and controversial attempts at restoration have left us. But I don't want to mislead you, because Greenaway's is not a work of substitution, but rather its goal is to create a means of compensating for what has already been lost over time and soon could be lost for good. Thus, in this way, Greenaway reconciles the conflicting forces of permanence and impermanence through a kind of restoration that in turn reveals itself to be a renaissance of appreciation. Thank you.